Hi, welcome to Pearls of Motherhood. I'm your host, Tessie.
And I'm your host, Diana.
Today, we're diving into one of the most powerful forces in shaping the future motherhood. A mother's influence goes far beyond childhood. The way she nurtures, teaches, and supports her child has a lasting impact on who they become, their confidence, their relationships, even their career choices, and emotional well being. It all starts with us. But first, let's dive into mom facts and book corners.
So, mom facts. Did you know that moms speak their own language? Research shows that moms across the world use a unique, high pitched, sing songy tone when talking to their babies, and it's called motherese. And it helps babies learn language faster. So, what is it? It's slower, high pitch, full of exaggerated vowels and repetitions like, oh, who's a happy baby? Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And I'll admit, I've used that and I still do. So why do moms do it? The thing is that it's not a cultural thing. It actually has been seen in moms all around the world, regardless of where you live or what language you speak. It's an instinctual way to grab the baby's attention and help them learn words, sounds, and social cues. So, how does it help our babies? It helps them boost brain development. They have better language comprehension and vocabulary growth. It improves their listening skills by helping them to distinguish sounds and start recognizing words. And most of all, it strengthens the bond between mom and baby. They've shown that moms who speak motherese have a stronger emotional connection. So, next time you hear a mom talking to her baby in that who's a happy baby, that playful sing-songy voice, you know they're actually helping their brains grow and shape the baby's future communication skills. I think that's so cool. I thought it was just, me being silly, but apparently there's a reason for it. And I'll admit, I did it, and I still do. She now looks at me because she's a toddler. I'm not a baby mom, but use real words. But she responds.
Yeah, who would have thought? It literally is such a natural, instinctual thing for us to do. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously there's a biological reason for it, and it makes
Yeah,
sense. It's so funny.
I think that's very cool.
All right, so in book corners, the book today is Never Stop Dreaming by Ellen Mills. It's kind of more for older kids. Now my kids are getting older, so I have like the gamut of different books from little baby counting books, and all the way on up. And it's one of those that once they get to a certain level of reading, they could read on their own. But what's cool about it is it's 10 stories and it inspires courage, self-confidence, talents, and the potential found when you follow your own dreams. And I do think it's geared towards boys because my boys are boys. That's why I have it. But I'm sure like girls could get things out of it too. But it's so nice to have just like positive books, that see my whole thing with books, and I know that I'm kind of unique in this, maybe not. I mean, let me know if I'm not, but I'm kind of like a little freak when it comes to books, and I do not like books where there's like a terrible story, but then at the end it's like, oh, but there's a learning lesson. I am
Mm-hmm.
of the thought process of like, don't even put the terribleness into their conscious, subconscious, or their conscious even. Why do they need to read about that? They could just read about the happy ending, and I understand like I feel like there's a time and a place to teach kids like perseverance and that there's bad things in the world and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't believe when they're 5 that's appropriate. But so it's just nice to have a book that all of the ways that it teaches is not necessarily like using like a negative aspect to teach a positive. I don't like that. And so,
Well, it sounds like it's just one big hug, which is so affirming. That's such a nice thing. And I understand what you're saying about the stories that have like a bad ending and or actually a bad beginning and then a good ending, because my daughter, she's at that age where if she sees something that is negative, she gets upset and then she stops and then she doesn't get to the end.
Oh my gosh.
So now she's just stuck on this bad part. So I've actually had to filter out certain things so that she does feel a little bit better, because she is still young. When she's older, she can have the whole story,
Mhm.
but she doesn't need to know, all of the grim fairy tales from beginning to end just
No.
yet. Eventually she will, but
Yeah.
right now we'll just do the happy ending part.
I know. It's so funny. I literally go through and will black out certain parts of books in my boys' curriculum because we homeschool. So I purchase the curriculum and all the books, but some of the books that come, I just am not okay with. And I mean, we use a Christian-based curriculum, so and I'm still
Mhm.
not okay with some of these. And it's not a Christian-based book or anything, but and it's funny, the teacher's like, you don't have to ruin your books like that. And I'm like, trust me, they're not missing anything. I'm not ruining anything. They don't need to ever see this, honestly, at this age.
I think that just goes to show the importance of having involved parents.
Mhm.
You can have the best curriculum, you can have the best teachers, you can have the best schools, whatever it is, but as a parent, you still need to be involved and know what your kids are consuming. So
Yes,
I
totally.
can totally see that. I can agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever read The Grinch Who Stole Christmas? I mean, everybody knows that story,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Hmm.
So that was part of their curriculum around Christmas. And
Hmm.
to me, I'm just like, okay, so the Grinch goes in. Yeah, he's a Grinch and he's curmudgeony about Christmas. Okay, they can know about that and stuff. But then he's like in there stealing people's stuff and
Hmm.
lying to the little girl about it. And I'm like, I don't necessarily want them putting that in their subconscious just so they could have like a happy ending at the end. So
Hmm.
I just like cross all that stuff out.
I have to. The Grinch was something that we came across this past holiday season too, and I appreciate the story because I'm an adult. I get it, but she took one look at the Grinch and freaked out. She didn't even get to the book, but she took a look at the cover and she goes, "Nope."
Smart girl. She has good instincts, right?
Yeah.
Like this is a kind of going down a rabbit hole, but what is it about everybody being obsessed with the Grinch at Christmas time lately? I feel like there's more Grinches in the light parade this year and the
Oh
last
yeah.
couple of years than like happy Santa and elves. Have you noticed that? Because I feel like this is a trend that's happening that people are like obsessed with the Grinch. And I'm like, why?
I forget
The
what it's
Grinch.
called, but there's oh gosh, I can't think of it. But it's like the antithesis of Santa. And he's like a fable or something like that. And I feel like it's German. I can't think of it at the moment. I'm gonna have to look it up later. And people get really into that. They're like that dark side of the holidays. And for me, maybe I'm basic. I just want things to be happy
I
and
know.
and cheerful. Well,
Same.
it's funny. Okay, going down this rabbit hole, we're gonna go off on a tangent here. So I took my daughter to the grocery store over the holidays, and we were walking through. There's a liquor section. We walked by it to get to the dairy section, and there was like this mean looking elf, and it's called Mad Elf. And I think I mentioned it on
What?
other episodes, but I think it's a beer brand. And he just has this mischievous grin and he's like leering out of the aisle. And she was terrified. She knows the direction of the elf. For weeks, I couldn't take her to the grocery store because she was like, no, elf scary, elf scary. There's something about I think the macabre when it comes to the holidays that people are just interested in, and for me that's not it. Give me the happy, cheerful, sparkly holidays.
Yeah, we're old school like that, I guess.
I guess we're old. That's okay.
We're turning into our grandparents one day at a time.
Already. Oh boy. Okay, but anyway, we digress.
So on to our topic. Okay, so motherhood. This episode is all about like, oh, you're just a mom, right? You're just a mom. Even we do this to ourselves, like, oh, I'm just a stay-at-home mom. Like we say that even to our like to other people. We say
Mm-hmm.
that, and people say that, oh, you're just a mom. You know what I mean? But what do you like, mom? Just a mom? And we often talk about the role of moms, like in the day-to-day life. But today we want to look at the big picture. Like, how does motherhood and being a mother and our mothers like shape our children's future and change the world in the process? Because it really does.
Mm-hmm.
We're not
Uh,
just moms.
we're not. We're not. And I'm guilty of saying that. How many times have people asked me, oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm just a mom. No, I'm
Yeah.
not just a mom.
Me
I'm
too.
amazing. I'm keeping the humans alive, in my house at least. So, from the moment a child is born, their mother is their first emotional guide. So, as the emotional blueprint, how do moms shape mental and emotional health? So, the way that she responds to the baby's cries teaches on whether the world is a safe and loving place. In addition, it's her tone of voice, like motherese, her expressions, even her ability to regulate her own emotions, all become part of the child's internal blueprint for how to handle stress, love, and adversity. Psychologists call this attachment theory. It's a secure attachment built through warmth, responsiveness, and consistency, and it helps kids grow into emotionally stable adults. But on the other hand, if a mom is distant or unpredictable, a child can struggle with anxiety, trust, and even self worth later on. We see this all the time with successful people like Oprah Winfrey, for example. She credits her grandma, who raised her, for instilling confidence and resilience in her despite early hardships. And the love and belief of a mom figure can change everything. I think that's so poignant.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense, like who is the child attached to from like utero? The
Mm-hmm.
mother. So it makes sense that even at a very early stage, it how your mother responds to you is how you're going to like internalize that, even from an age where you don't even you can't even recognize it's all subconscious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. When what do we do when we're upset? We want our moms.
Mhm.
We want to, I know, even now as a mom, when I'm upset, in my head, what I think, I want my mom. My mom's a few states over, but I still want my mom.
Yeah. So just think about the impact that has. It starts so early, but the impact that has just emotionally and mentally on the population,
Mm-hmm.
if we have positive attachments, like good, secure attachments, which are very important, then overall the society is going to be so much better off for it mentally and
Mm-hmm.
emotionally.
Yeah. Because we're going to go through hardships in our life, but it's
Yeah.
how we face them. And it starts with how our moms respond to us. I know
Hmm.
for me, my mom, she always would stop and look me in the eye and say, well, what's up? What's going on? Just so I know that I'm being acknowledged. And that says a lot. That was a lot, especially as a child, being one of four, that she actually took the time to say, okay, what do you need? That made me feel special and that my emotions counted.
So yeah, like it is how we respond to our kids when they're, let's say they're upset, and
Mm-hmm.
if we're like a mother who's like, oh, get over it, figure it out. And they're like, one, at a certain point, I get that, but at a young age, attachment is very important. My husband's always like, they just love you and they have a secure attachment and they just
Mm-hmm.
want to be with you. And it's true. And if I responded like oppositely instead of actually meeting that need for them, it would probably be detrimental mentally.
Yeah. Your boys are older. I'm sure that the way that you respond to them, you probably see a reflection of how they respond to their younger siblings in
Oh,
that.
very true. Yeah. Because when I show, it's true, they do have a lot of compassion for each other because I do show a lot of compassion to them. I show a lot of compassion to them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because I didn't really get any compassion growing up. But definitely one of those cycle breakers that I'm working on.
We're going to get into that. It's called reparenting. That's in a segment here.
Oh, yes. Okay, perfect. All right. So, like the power of words, a mother's voice and how a mother speaks to their child really does shape their identity.
Mm.
So, have you ever noticed how things that your mom say stick with you years later? Or if
Oh,
you
yeah.
think about it, even if anyone says anything to you, let's say it's positive or negative, like you really do remember that. It's like probably a million times louder in your head if it's your mother, you know? So a mother who tells her child, "Oh, you're smart, you're kind, you're capable." You're you're literally programming their self-esteem and their self-worth by just speaking to them. And so on the flip side, a mother who's constantly criticizing or comparing or creating insecurities, that is going to last a lifetime, and that is going to impact the world because it's going to impact the way that your child interacts with the world, positive or negative. If you think about it, think
Yeah.
about the voices in your own head. Like, are they encouraging? Are they harsh? And more
Hmm.
often than not, they sound like the first voice that guided us. And that typically is our mother. Not every time, but we're all mothers. So, like, this is what it's all about. So, when you're talking to your kids, and trust me, I know it's so hard because I literally say so many things in my head all throughout the day that I would never say out loud to my kids.
Same here. So
Like,
many words.
it's so sad. I really do think a lot of the time, like, God, kids are so stupid because they're just learning, but like, I would never say that to them, but I think it. Like, why are you so stupid? But they're not stupid. But could you imagine if I said that out loud every time I thought it? How horrible.
They would grow up thinking that they're stupid.
I
That'd
know.
be horrible.
So
Absolutely
just like
terrible.
think about it. There's some things as a mother that just should never be said, even if you think it.
I will have to say that I say a lot of bad 4-letter words in my own head. And I just really hope that, that I catch it before it comes flying out of my mouth, because she's going to learn a lot of new words. Although there are times that I have slipped, like when I get frustrated at something. That does happen. But yeah, thinking about
I
how you're
I literally think in my head multiple times a day, like, shut the F up. But I never say it out loud. I'm just like, oh, yes. Oh, can you please keep it down a little bit? Can you please not talk so loud? Can you please go outside? Meanwhile, in my head, like, shut the F up.
for me, it's WTF. It's WTF over and over again. Of course, it doesn't come out, or at least I try not to let it come out. I go, oh, let's not do it this way. Let's try another way. Or you pour the pom-poms out again, WTF. Oh, instead I say, oh, honey, let's sweep it up. Let's put it away nicely. Let's go play with something else. uh,
Yes, and all the while, what you're doing is you're shaping her identity in a positive way by having self-control.
talk about work in progress. Yeah, actually, they found that one fascinating study found that when astronauts were in high stress situations, that their mom's words of encouragement from childhood played back in their heads, and it helped them push through that fear. That's so cool.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, there's probably a reason they became astronauts, right? Because that's not an easy thing. It's probably a very small percentage of the population who can
Mm-hmm.
even achieve that level. And it probably, if you didn't start out with a good foundation from your mother, it's probably not going to be you, you know?
Yeah. Yep. I
So
bet you
that's
we
good.
ask astronauts, they had spectacular moms.
I bet. Yeah. We should interview their mothers.
Yes.
See? And that's one way that think about all the mothers out there right now with little kids, and think about how your kids could impact the world by being whatever, based on how we mother them today. We
Yeah.
actually are creating the future. We don't even know. It's like this one huge experiment that we're still working on, but we
Mhm.
don't even know how it's going to turn out. And I'm sure a lot of people who are in prison had mothers who actually said out loud, "Shut the F up."
Amongst other things. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more than just the F-bomb.
It's potential, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I saw this thing on, was it Facebook or Instagram? I don't remember. It was actually sad to me, but I think people thought it was funny. But it was like this reel of all of these like very small toddlers, like 1.5, 2-year-old little toddlers, like saying a ton of curse words or calling people like curse words,
Oh.
And to me, I thought that was sad because obviously they're learning that from adults, and I feel like that's not a good foundation to set a 2-year-old on. I thought it was really sad, actually. That is where society is kind of going that way, and it's everywhere. You can't get away from it nowadays.
Well, I have to admit, so before I became a mom, when my friends' kids, they dropped a 4-letter word, I thought it was cute and funny. But as a mother, I think of it differently now because
Yeah.
I'll admit, I swear. I swore a lot more before I became a mom, but now that I have her and I know that I don't want her using those words,
Yep.
I consciously stop myself from saying that. So I think that when it's not your kid, it's cute and funny, but I think that when it's yours, it's a little bit more personal. So
I know.
I am guilty of that. I can see the humor in that reel, and I've taken part in it, and I've said, oh, I don't want to be a part of that for my kid.
No, right? I know. It's all about self-control. How much
Yep.
do we have? That's what it comes down to.
It's really interesting because I was thinking back when we were writing this episode. I was thinking back about my daughter, and as you all know, I co-sleep with her, so I get a lot of insight into her subconscious when she's sleeping. And she has nightmares, or she will cry in the middle of the night sometimes. Maybe she has a bad dream or whatever it was. But I'll whisper to her, "You're with mama. I got you. You're
Oh.
safe. You're okay." And the other day, she was nervous. I think, we're going somewhere for the first time, and she was nervous. I could see it. And she whispers to herself, "I got you." I was like, oh my gosh, she hears me. So maybe that's a positive influence or a negative. I don't know. But, but we definitely do shape who they are and how they handle tough situations from a very early age.
Yeah, I love that. And you can even speak to them when they're sleeping, and it goes into their brain and they remember it
Mm-hmm.
subconsciously.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and speaking of astronauts, mothers and how we raise our kids really determine their career and life choices. And mothers can really influence a child's ambition.
Yeah. So if like a mom values education, her child is more likely to pursue higher learning. And if a mom shows resilience in her own career, her child learns that challenges are just a stepping stone. They're not, something that'll hold you back forever. They're just on your path. So I think that's pretty cool.
Ben Carson, he's
Yeah.
like some famous baby neurosurgeon, right? Or is it
Mhm.
heart surgeon? I think it's a heart surgeon. And
I don't remember.
his mom was a single mom. And I don't know if she was illiterate or if she just really focused on them learning to read, but she used to make her boys go and do a book report at the library every single week. They had to
Really?
read a book. Yes. And so they were avid readers. They did. And now look at him. He's like some like top level, probably
Mm-hmm.
very rare. And who knows? Maybe he read a lot of biographies or something, and
Hmm.
it sparked his interest in doing that.
That's so cool. Or like even Abraham Lincoln, our 16th president. He credits his mom, Nancy Hanks Lincoln, for shaping his character and love for learning. And even though she passed away when he was just 9 years old, she still instilled in him like this sense of honesty and compassion and the value of education. He's even been quoted as saying, quote, all that I am or hope to be, I owe to my angel mother, end quote. Isn't that beautiful?
Oh, that's so sweet.
I
That's so
know.
funny. My boys were just reading that book in school that like
Really?
about Abraham Lincoln. And it's so sad how the mother dies, yes, when he's young, and then the father like remarries, and luckily a nice woman. But
Hmm.
I was like, oh my God, that's so gruesome for them. Like now, now they're like all afraid when I leave the house that I'm gonna die. It's so horrible.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
I
That's a tough
know.
one.
But yeah,
Uh,
he loved learning, and he loved reading more than working on the farm, and
hmm.
he actually went that, and he basically self-taught himself, and he became a lawyer, and he became the president, and
Yeah.
it was
Known for
all
his honesty and compassion. I mean, that's what he's known for, right? Honest Abe.
yes. And so that actually proves the point that his mother wasn't around for most of his life, but
Mm.
the very early on years of his life is what shaped his future, his entire life, basically.
Yeah, you're right. I
So
never thought of that.
it
Yeah.
starts very young. It doesn't actually, you could do this, and it could have a huge impact in just a short amount of time, which is incredible when you think
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, because your relationship and the love from your mom, again, is the first example of a connection, right? That's
Hmm.
the first one that they ever meet, they ever develop a relationship with. So the way that she interacts with them and with others, it sets the foundation for how these kids will navigate their friendships, their romantic relationships, and even like workplace dynamics. So, like, if a mom shows a healthy communication, her child learns how to express emotions without fear. That, mom is a safe place. And I think that's so important. I know my mom is my safe place.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And if a mother demonstrates kindness or forgiveness, you know, their child is going to carry that on. Our children are sponges, right? They
Hmm.
watch everything that we do. I feel like I'm suddenly starting to feel like this huge pressure. Like I have to be Jesus Christ, like I got to be good. They're watching, and it actually is true. All of these like terrible negative thing, like not, I don't know, like the um behaviors that I see in my son, who's the most like me, is like
Hmm.
literally me. And I'm recognizing that he picks these things up from me, so I feel like I'm feeling like this huge pressure, but it's true. Like they're sponges, and they're watching everything that we do. They're watching how we interact with our husbands, if we have
Hmm.
one,
Hmm.
and how like all of that stuff, they're picking it up, and they do carry that on into adulthood.
Yeah. Uh, Especially since my daughter, I want her to be aware of like toxic relationships, and how I
Yes.
relate to her father is to me really important. So I'm very fortunate that I have an amazing husband who's very loving and supportive, and I know you do too, Tessie. But to me, I want to make sure that she knows that when you go out in the world and you find a partner, whoever that is, they have to treat you the way your daddy treats me.
Mhm.
That is the bottom line. You are the most precious thing in the world, and you need to be taken care of and loved and appreciated for all those wonderful things, and even like the negative things too. That's super important.
Yeah, okay, so this is interesting perspective that I have is like, um, I always tell my husband, I'm like, I think that the relationship that he has with our daughter is probably even more important than the relationship I have with her, because I do truly believe that like his dynamics with her are going to set the stage for the dynamics that she will actually accept in a relationship. And also with me too. Like
Yeah.
he treats me really well too. And so that's good. But you know, I grew up, I was like I'm still like a huge daddy's girl, you know?
Your dad's amazing.
Yeah. And I wouldn't settle for any. It's so funny, like as great as my husband is, he's still always like, "Oh, I can never be as good as your dad." Because I'm like, "Oh, you're not as good as him in this and that," you know. And I think like that's great. You should keep your husband on their toes. I mean, like,
Yeah.
you're not. So that's what I want her to be with her husband is like keeping him on his toes. You
Yeah.
can't be as good as my daddy.
Well, I mean, like they always say, girls, we find partners who are very much like our father figures. So if we have a toxic relationship, or if our father figures were toxic, we may subconsciously look for that in our partners, and that is terrible. We mentioned it before that, you know, you and I, we think that the most important choice you can make in your life is who you spend your life with and have children with.
Yes.
So what we see in our parents and how our mothers are treated makes a huge impact.
Yeah. So, like mothers who do struggle with toxic relationships, you know, the child could potentially be picking that up and repeating
Mm-hmm.
those patterns. So, it is really important. None of us come from a perfect background. None of us. And
Mm-hmm.
so,
That's right.
breaking any of these negative cycles, like consciously, we have to really be mindful about this and intentional because we
Mm-hmm.
all have certain things from our background. And it's really important to mindfully think about this when we're raising our kids
Mm-hmm.
because what we obviously want is we want to give our children a healthier start, healthier life than we started from, you
Yeah.
know, and we want them to have like better emotional and relational tools than we had, even if we had good ones, can always
Yeah.
be improved upon.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting. I came across this term called reparenting this
Hmm.
week. I had no idea what it was, but it's the process of like giving yourself the love and care and emotional support that you may not have received as a child.
Hmm.
And it involves, mindfulness, thinking about and recognizing unhealthy patterns, healing past wounds. That's so hard to do.
Hmm.
And developing new, healthier ways of thinking and behaving. And so, why is reparenting important? It's because we are shaped, we are shaped by who we are, what happened in childhood. If we didn't feel loved, if we didn't feel cared for, we follow those patterns into adulthood. And when we reparent ourselves and give ourselves that love and care, and we break those negative cycles, we create a more nurturing relationship with ourselves.
Hmm.
So how do we do that? First of all, we self-awareness, recognizing that there are old wounds and triggers. That's a big one for me. Certain triggers just set me off on a negative path. Having your inner dialogue shift. We talked earlier about, what is that inner voice telling you? Is it
Hmm.
loving or is it negative? And shifting it to be a positive influence on your psyche. Also, setting boundaries, protecting your energy and prioritizing your emotional well-being. Don't let those toxic relationships in. Learning to comfort yourself in healthy ways. That's super important. And also self-care. We have a whole episode on self-care. How do you take care of yourself? How do you bring joy and creativity and fulfillment into your own life? And the idea is that when you become the parent that you need, you know what? Your kid can learn from that. I was a very clumsy kid. I am still a clumsy human. I drop things left and right. Things happen. I fall all the time. But when I was little, when I dropped something or something would break, it was always, why are you so clumsy? Look what you did. You made a mess.
Mhm.
And I had that. Still have that in my head sometimes. When I drop something and I break something, I get so down on myself, like, oh, I'm so stupid. Why did I do that? I'm so clumsy. I made such a mess, blah, blah, blah. And I try not to do that with my daughter. I try to really be supportive because accidents are going to happen. And what are you going to do? You're going to clean it up. It's going to get
Mhm.
cleaned up. So how should I handle this? Let her
Mhm.
know that gravity did it and it's
Mhm.
going to happen. And we will just say, that's okay. How can I help you? Let's fix this together. Or am I going to be negative? And I'm choosing to use loving words to reparent myself when I have those moments so that I can show her how to do better when it happens to her because it will happen.
Yeah, totally. And I feel like now we know what the word is, but I feel like everybody out there kind of can relate to this where there's
Mhm.
there's certain things that we all do in our parenting style or what we do that we intentionally do opposite from what we grew up with, right?
Yes.
And so
Yes.
I think like subconsciously we've been doing this, especially me. I do so many things opposite because I did recognize like I don't want my kids to feel this certain kind of way or have these certain emotions or like I don't want to do this to my kids, like for instance corporal punishment. We don't do
Mm-hmm.
that. And that another thing is like not it's really hard not to get angry when they like break something or
Yeah.
spill something, but that's also one of the things that like I'm working on too is it really is like you have to look at big picture. Okay, this whole entire episode is about big picture, right? And if we
Mm-hmm.
break something or we spill something, at the end of the day, no matter what it is, even if it's big, let's say it's a car, whatever, it's still just a material possession. Like it's not that big of a thing in the big scheme of things. You got to be
Mm-hmm.
more spiritual in your life and understand that that's actually not important and relate the relationship and the way that we relate to our children and other human beings. It's so much more important how we make them feel versus like any material thing on the planet, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Yeah. Because in the long run, what are they going to remember? Is it the vase that was broken or the cup that was broken or even the car? No, it's about
No.
how mom talked to me about it, how we made it better because certain things can be fixed. And like you said, in the whole scheme of things, it's just a blip. It's just a little
Totally.
nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, okay, so they're going to remember how you made them feel every day, all day. Like they're going to remember how they feel. That's like human beings are very emotional creatures and we remember our feelings. Even like if you hear a song or you smell something that reminds you of the past, like what comes back? It's the emotions that you feel from that scenario or whatever that
Mm-hmm.
you're remembering. It's so funny too because like when my oldest was 1.5, we bought a new car. We needed a car, bigger car. We
Mm-hmm.
bought a new car and we were parked in this like dirt parking lot and we had just had it like 2 weeks maybe. And he picked up a rock and started scratching the paint with the
Oh,
rock.
oh no. Oh
And I learned a lot of this from my husband. I'll have to be honest. I did not learn any of this from myself because my old self would have freaked out. But
no. I'm
he
freaking
taught,
out for you.
yes, but he's actually taught me a lot of this. And like one of the things he has a different perspective on everything, which is so great. But he was like, okay, first off, it's just a car. And second off, every time we see that scratch, it's going to remind us of our little baby at 1.5. And it really is true. Like every time
A
we,
really good way. Yeah.
we never fixed it because of that.
He left his imprint.
And you know what? Guess what? The car still ran. We still have the car. We still drive it around. Nobody notices. Not a big deal. You know what I mean? Like, who
Mm-hmm.
cares?
Yeah.
So we
But in
could have
that
reacted
moment,
in the moment. We could have reacted so differently. We could have
mhm.
spanked him. We could have freaked out on him. All of these things. He would have remembered that
Yep.
subconsciously.
Yeah. That's
So,
completely true. It's funny. So I have a nephew. Love my nephew. He used to play this game Go, where we would run around with him, literally run around in circles around the house, and he doesn't remember that game.
Hmm.
He doesn't remember the game, but he does realize that when his uncle and I are in town, we are fun. So he doesn't remember the exact game, but he remembers the emotion.
Yes.
I think that's so interesting
Yep.
because we played it forever. I mean, he was like a kid, but he doesn't remember it now that he's a preteen. But
Yeah,
he
I mean,
remembers the emotion.
I learned this a while ago, just in like learning like sales type of stuff, and there's a saying that like they don't remember what you say, they remember how you make them feel, and it's so true. Like they're
Mm.
never going to remember our words or exactly what we're saying to them. They will remember the emotions that we bring up with our words, and
Yeah.
we do that too as adults. Same thing.
Yeah. That's a really poignant thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and mothers, they also like, we also have the ability. We did a whole entire episode on resilience and
Mm-hmm.
teaching kids grit, perseverance. And mothers have the unique ability to like teach kids that life is unpredictable, challenges are inevitable. But one of the greatest gifts that we can teach our children, and we did a whole episode on this, is
Yeah, we did.
resilience. And it's so
Mm-hmm.
true. It's like I said on the episode, was I'm always telling my oldest, he kind of just wants to shy away from everything that's hard. He wants me to baby him. And if you want more me to go into depth on that, listen to the episode.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, it's true. I'm always telling him everything in life is hard. Remember when you first learned this? It wasn't easy at first, right? But now it is. Everything. And so like we have that capability as mothers to just to teach them that and to instill in them like, you got to persevere, you know.
Yeah. So like former President Barack Obama, he credits his mom, Ann Dunham, for instilling in him a sense of purpose and responsibility despite the challenges of growing up in a single parent household. Or Thomas Edison, his mom, Nancy Edison, pulled him out of school after teachers labeled him as quote unquote difficult, and she homeschooled him instead. And I mean, without her belief in him, we wouldn't have the light bulb. Could you imagine if we didn't have the light bulb?
Devastating.
Absolutely horrible. Thank you, Nancy Edison.
Yes, thank you. So, see, us mothers, like, we look at that, how one mother changed the world, and we have light bulbs because she believed in her child, who, did you know that he was actually deaf?
No, I
deaf
didn't.
or blind? He was deaf. He was either deaf or blind, but it came on later in life, like when he was not later in life, but he was a child, I think.
Oh.
I can't remember exactly, but we were reading his biography, me and my boys, and yes, I believe he was deaf, but I'll have to look into that. But yeah, can you believe that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And
Wow.
his mother could have written him off like, oh, like, you're never going to amount to anything because of this, like, handicap that you have. And she didn't. You know what she did do? And my husband and I are the same way. Like, instead of treating him in a different way, they probably treated him exactly the same they would treat him if he wasn't, and expected him to be just as good. And he was. And he probably actually had to work harder because of it to be just as good, which is why he eventually invented the light bulb.
She realized that he was extraordinary. She realized it, and so did he eventually.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. So yeah, we're all about teaching resilience and not having failure to thrive children. We don't want that.
No, that's a big thing in the back of my head all the time.
And when you teach your kids how to be resilient, how to persevere, grit is a really good word. I love that word.
Oh, me too.
You really are shaping the future, because life is hard. Let's be real. I'm always saying that. It's like, it really is though. And you don't know, like, they could come across something. You don't want your kids just to shy away from it. And that's our ability. We have that ability to teach them
to get back up, because we all fall. We're all going to fall. So how are we going to get back up? That's so important. Something I still struggle with, but I'm a work in progress. I'm still reparenting myself.
Well, here's something that I actually struggle with because I'm way too serious, but the power of play. Moms really shape creativity And in turn, it helps shape problem solving because they
Mm.
have to figure things out in a different way. If they're being creative, it kind of goes hand in hand. And so you ever wonder why some people are natural problem solvers
Yeah.
while other people really struggle to think outside the box? And a
Hmm.
lot of it starts in childhood, and a mother's role in playtime
Wow.
can be a huge factor. Also, I feel like a father's role is like in my household, my husband is definitely the one who plays more with them. Growing up, my dad was definitely the one that played more with me, but a mother has a role in that too.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
actually, it makes me wonder, like, I actually tend to be a pretty good outside of the box problem thinker.
Hmm.
And my
Yeah.
mother didn't play with me, but I wonder what if she had? Maybe I would even be like to the next degree out of the
Mm.
box.
The what ifs, right?
I know.
So, how can we play with our kids? Like, what can we do to get them to be natural problem solvers? Like,
Well, when a mom like encourages her child to explore, build, and create,
mm,
it really is creating and shaping the brain for innovation and adaptability.
oh,
And
wow.
even simple things like storytelling, puzzles. Kids love puzzles even at a very young age.
Mm,
Pretend play, which I'm not very good at, but it teaches critical thinking. And
yeah.
also like modeling emotional intelligence and resilience that can
Yeah.
all build their brain in a positive direction.
It's funny because I'm a serious person. I never thought I was playful, but after having my daughter, I find out that I am much more creative and much more playful than I thought I ever could be. Pretend play is something that she's really embracing right now. So I'm using it to kind of teach her social examples, like when she sees other kids, if they want to hug her, for example, she's not a big hugger outside of the family. How do you handle those situations? And I saw that the other day that she's starting to use it. Like she'll do a high five instead or like a wave. I'm like, hey, it's working.
Aw. I don't know. I just feel like as a mom of four that are so close together that just by default, they just play with each other, and
Mhm.
I don't like there are moments where they want me to engage and do that, but for the most part, they really want me just to like read to them and snuggle them. And it's not sometimes, it's not never, but sometimes they want me to play with them, but it's so rare because they just have each other that it's just
Mhm.
not a thing that I do with them. Sometimes I get to the point where I'm like, no, I'm busy. That's why I had your brothers and sister like go play with them. you know. But honestly, moms who engage in play like aren't just entertaining their children because I have heard this from my other friends who only have one, and as they get older, into like the more of the play, 3, 4, 5, where they typically play together. Their kids are constantly wanting them to play with them, and entertain
Mhm.
them. And so moms who do that, you're training them to be thinkers, dreamers, and problem solvers, and you get to really guide that play, which is kind of a unique thing, if you think about it. Like you're going to get that with your
That's really
daughter.
cool. Yeah. So she's at the age of she just wants me all the time. She's very much a mama's girl
Yeah.
and she wants me to play with her.
Hmm.
Interactive play, all those things. And yeah, and I hate to say this, but I get frustrated because I have
Yeah.
things I need to do. And
No,
I'm like,
totally.
yeah. And I feel bad, but I love the way that you just phrase that we're not just entertaining them, we're helping to shape them to be thinkers and dreamers and problem solvers. So it's so much more than okay, we're just sitting here and building a railroad. We're
Yeah.
engineering a railroad.
It's such great one-on-one experience, and you can have deep conversations with them at a certain point, and you get to really shape the direction of the play and the direction of like the way that you want their brain to be building. It actually
Yeah.
is a really unique. See, my in my household, it's just Animal Kingdom. I'm just like observing. What's that show on Netflix? The Planet or something? What's that show?
Animal Planet.
Animal Planet. That's just me. I'm just an observer over here. Okay. Every now and then I have to step in and be the referee, but it's rare. And other than that, like they kind of shape their world and they figure it all out and stuff. Like, I don't have a big role in that unless I need to, but
Hmm.
you get to have that
Yeah.
whole role, which is cool.
And so this is going to reframe my thinking. So again, we talked about reframing our thinking and
Yeah.
building resilient children. If you reframe the time that you're spending with your kid, it kind of reprioritizes the important thing. Is it really that important to do the stack of dishes in the sink, or is it more important to interact and kind of create a
Yeah.
problem solver and a dreamer?
Well,
I'm going to
yeah,
go
and
with the
when
dreamer.
me too, because when you think about it too, there's a lot of things that I'll be doing with my kids where, like, for instance, I have always rocked all of my babies to sleep every single night, their entire lives, until they get to the point where then we have to lay in the bed together. And I'm still laying in bed with my 5-year-old until he falls asleep. And I do that with all of my kids. And sometimes I'm like sitting there for an hour and a half, like rocking each of these kids to sleep and stuff. And I'm like, man, sometimes I think in my head, this is such a waste of my time. Like, I could be doing
Hmm.
something so much more productive, quote unquote,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
But in reality, that is the most productive thing I actually could be doing, is bonding with my children and like
Hmm.
securing that attachment. And what else is more important than that? And also, it's not going to be forever.
Yes. So going off on that, one of my most favorite things to do in the day is when my daughter wakes up, whether it's from an evening of sleep or from a nap, what she loves to do is lay on my chest. And I used to go, okay, get
Yes.
up. We gotta do A, B, C, D. You gotta brush your teeth, wash your face. We gotta get out of the house. And I stopped doing that. I actually just let her lay there, and we'll lay there for an hour and we have these conversations. She just talks and counts and we sing, and it's actually my most favorite time of the day. And we're starting to create storylines. Like, she'll bring her stuffies to bed with her now, and
Aw.
she'll say, Grumpy, how are you today? And we'll have, conversations, and it's my favorite. I love
Aw.
it.
I
It's better
love
than running out the
that.
door.
Yes. That's what I love about homeschooling, is that we're on our own schedule. I choose the schedule. We're not like up at 6 in the morning doing a frantic morning
Mm.
routine. No, I get to get up. My kids are my alarm clock, and it's the best alarm clock on the planet.
Mhm.
Seriously, I love it. And I get to just be with them in the morning. Yeah, our mornings are still crazy and hectic, but it's not in the same way. I used to
Yeah,
take my older boys to preschool and thought I was going to go down that road. And that was so stressful, like
I
having to
bet.
wake them up early and force them to eat like fast and all this stuff. I just like didn't like it. But yeah, what we do in the morning, we snuggle in the morning. And
Yeah,
we used to read a lot of books in the morning, and they take bottles in the morning, water and stuff, and it's like the best.
it
And you're not
is.
wasting time. It's so valuable.
It is. Because you can't rebuild this time with them.
Yeah. And that you can't put a dollar sign on it either. It's like so
Yeah,
precious.
yeah. Speaking of dollar signs, moms, we influence their financial habits. So money habits aren't just about numbers. They're about values, mindset, and decision making. And for most of us, the way we handle money as adults goes back to what we learned from our moms.
Wow.
So, like, if your mom teaches you about saving and budgeting, then you're most likely going to do that as a grown up too. If your mom has like entrepreneur skills, she may inspire her kids to think about building wealth and creating opportunities and job security for other people. While on the flip side, like, if your mom struggles, has financial stresses, or she's not handling her money well, the kid may not be handling their money well either.
Mhm.
I know, like, for my mom, and I mentioned this in a previous episode, my mom is an accountant by training, and she has ledgers, and I loved her ledgers as a
Yeah.
kid. Still do. I still have my own ledgers, only on Excel now. And she uses an abacus because she's old school that way. I never learned to use an abacus, but I think it's the most amazing thing. And honestly, I like money talk. It's a hard conversation, yes, but I think it's so important because so much of our life is centered around money. Let's just face it. We are a capitalist society. We need money to make things work.
Mhm.
And when you don't handle that well, that has such an impact on you. And it starts with us as moms. So, mom, thank you for teaching me how to write a ledger. Yay.
Yeah, you picked that up and now you are very responsible and you track your ledgers and
I
you
do love tracking my ledgers. It's so dorky. I'm like, oh, we spent a little extra here. We don't need that next month.
Yeah, one thing I did learn from my mom too is no, we don't. If we can't like afford it, we're not going to buy it. And like if
Yeah.
we can't, even if we put on a credit card, we're not going to put on a credit card unless we can pay it off. And I do think that was a valuable lesson for me to learn cuz it obviously taught me like don't live beyond your means, which is an
Yeah.
important lesson to learn. But on the flip side of that, I do the opposite. I do a little bit different from what my mother did because I don't want to like teach my children like scarcity, that money is scarce and be like, "Oh, well, we can't afford it," and that's and that. Like I want them to always feel like, "Okay, well, if I want something, how can I find a way to get enough money, or how can I find a way to do this?" You know what I mean? So we as mothers, we can teach them that too, like problem solving too, instead of just denying yourself and being like, no, we can't afford it, or we shouldn't buy that because we can't afford it, which is also a good lesson to learn. But also at the same time, be like, well, if you really, really want it, what can you do? And so
Yeah.
my boys, they really wanted something. Oh, what was it? Oh, it was like, I forget what it was, but we have a lemon tree. And I was like, you go right ahead. What can we do? We can pick these lemons and you can go and sell them. And they picked all the lemons off the tree. They took them in a wagon. They went around our entire neighborhood, which is not easy because the houses are 1 to 2 acres apart in our neighborhood. It's
And
not,
very
they're not,
hilly.
and very hilly. And yes, you have to go. They were pulling this wagon with these lemons up these driveways and they sold like $20 worth of lemons.
That's insane. That's insane.
Yes.
But they learned it from you because you're an entrepreneur.
Yes.
You wanted to have your own business. And so you instilled that thinking of what can I do? What are my resources? And how can I make this work for my
Yes.
advantage?
Yes. And they're always asking me, I want this, I want this. And I tell them, okay, well, how are you going to earn the money for it? What are you going to
Hmm.
do extra? They do have chores that they get paid $1 a week. It's like
Hmm.
not a lot, but they have to do a lot of chores and for that dollar. But then I'm like, if you want more money faster, what's something you can do? Think outside the box. You know what I mean? And
But
that
it's
is something that I
teaching,
want to teach them. Yeah.
yeah, it's teaching them the value of a dollar,
Hmm.
that money isn't easy to earn. And I think that's something that you're like, wow, I worked really hard for this. I remember my first job. I was getting paid, I think, $10 an hour right out of college or something like that. And I remember walking by the Gap or Banana Republic and going, oh, wow, I want that dress. But then I would break it down to how many hours would I have to work for that dress or
Yes.
whatever it is? Is it really worth it? And
Yes.
that's how I would think about it.
Yes. I think like we have that ability as mothers and I think that's great. I think that's awesome. So like we could shape the whole financial like our country has like a huge debt problem as it
Hmm.
is right now.
Yeah.
And we as mothers have the ability to change that for the future. So we
Yeah.
should be very mindful.
We are shaping the future of smart, informed financial decision makers.
Mhm.
That's something to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, and another thing that I think actually this is probably the most important thing that mothers can teach their children, honestly, is teaching them compassion. Like we
Mm.
need compassion in this world. And just imagine if we had an entire society full of very compassionate people. I mean, just imagine how that would change the world.
What a
And
beautiful place to live, right?
I know. So as moms, we shape the way that we actually treat like our kids treat other people. And
Mm.
I think it all starts with like, how do we learn to be kind? How do we learn to give? How do we learn to care for others? It really does start with what we see at home. And for many of us, our mothers, because mothers tend to be more, like the sweet, like compassionate side,
Usually, typically,
Yeah.
stereotypically, right? But not always.
My husband's very compassionate, probably more than me, actually. But
Same here.
mothers,
Same here.
mothers are the first example of compassion because, well, especially if it's like us where we're with our children more, like they see us in action day to day. How do we actually treat them? Do we treat them with compassion or not? I feel like
Yeah.
that's like the basis of it, the foundation.
Right. Kind of like the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you want done to you.
Exactly. That's such a great thing. I really need to say that more to my kids. There's a song that we have on a CD that sings that, like,
Really?
do to others, and they love that. As you would have them do to you. It's like this
Really?
dorky CD that I got from a thrift store.
I
They love it
stores.
though.
I love thrift stores. They have the best finds. That's so cool.
So like I said earlier, kids are sponges. So they're watching everything that we do. They're mimicking everything that we do. So when mothers volunteer, when we help neighbors, when like we teach the kindness. Just for example, this last week, one of my friends was like deathly ill. Her and her whole entire family pretty much, except for the breastfeeding baby, of course.
Of course.
Was fine.
Oh no.
But so sick, right? And something is going around like it always does. I mean, it's the winter. And I made them dinner one night. I made them like my super soup. It has all of the ingredients to make you better. And my 5-year-old, we were just talking about like, oh, how you should help people when they're in need and stuff. And he was like, oh yeah, like when you made dinner for them the other night. Like he
made that connection.
Recognized it. Yes.
Wow.
So they pick up on it, even if you don't know that they're picking up on things. They do. They're watching.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another way like mothers can teach compassion is like standing up for what's right, teaching children about justice, integrity, doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And they're watching.
Are we going to stand up to the bully or are we going to be the bully?
Yeah, exactly. Or are you going to cower to the bully? That's also not necessarily a scenario I want my kids to be in.
No.
Like cowering to the bully.
No. It's a fine line, but yeah, they're learning from us. Are we teaching them to stand up for what's right and do what's right? Or are we teaching them bad habits to shy away from adversity or to be the bully?
Yeah. 3 different scenarios. Take your pick. What do you want your kids to do in that scenario?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when we model empathy, you're shaping the future adult who's going to show up for others and be empathetic and be compassionate.
I mean, Princess Diana, I love this example that you put in here. And her dedication to humanitarian work, and especially with AIDS patients, it wasn't just about her. It was that she wanted to give these people a voice. And as a result, her sons, Prince William, Prince Harry, they are all about service and advocacy today. That's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And so another way that we can help shape the future is teaching our kids how to be healthy and have a healthy well-being and lifestyle choices, healthy lifestyle choices. A mother's influence extends way beyond emotional and intellectual growth, and it also shapes physical health and well-being.
I know that my personal dietary choices were based on what my mom always ate. What did I see her eating on a regular basis? So I try to model that for my daughter. And yeah, I like the occasional treats, but the other day was such a win because she was eating ice cream, but then she asked for tomatoes and broccoli instead. I was so happy.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's what we make for them. We're the ones obviously making their food. It's important for us to it's also important for us to model that, eat the same food. I'm guilty of like I'll make myself something different, or I'll put more seasoning or something different seasoning. If they figure it out, then mine tastes better.
But we all do that. We all do that because some things are just not meant. Like a kid, can they really have really spicy Indian food? No, they want to try it, but they're going to regret that,
True.
or we will
Exactly.
regret it.
Exactly. Yeah. But I will hide my Cheez-Its in a coffee cup, and they'll just think I'm drinking coffee, and I'm like sneaking my Cheez-Its here and there so that they don't know I'm eating them.
But I mean, we all do. As long as the majority of our time and is spent doing healthy things, they're going to model that. Because
Yeah.
we all that's a bonus of being an adult, right? We get to do what we want to do. They'll eventually earn
Exactly.
that privilege.
Exactly. And I tell them that all the time too. I'm like, when you're an adult, you can do this, this, and this. You can make this decision. You can do whatever you want. I hope you make the right choices, but it's up to you. But as of now, but I'm a kind of a crunchy mom. I've mentioned this before, and I'm all about health and minimal stuff and all of that. But I really am not to the extreme, because I do believe in 80-20. It's like, okay,
Mhm.
every now and then I'll give my kids junk food, or I'll let them have a cookie if some older person wants to offer them a cookie. And I used to be completely extreme on that, where I'm like, no, not even a bite, no
Mhm.
sugar, and just like totally. But you know what? As long as it's not every single day, it's
Yeah.
not going to hurt them.
But also it teaches them balance, right? Because that's
Yeah.
that's really what it comes down to. You can't only eat broccoli. That's not going to
Yeah.
be good for you. You
No,
can't do
true.
that. We can't survive on that. But you also can't eat chocolate chip cookies, only chocolate chip cookies. It's a
Yes.
it's a balance.
Yeah,
And
I
that's what
am
we're
big
teaching.
on um everything in moderation is what
Mhm.
I always say. And balancing. Yes, balanced meals, balanced diet. Like
Mhm.
you can't live on one thing. It's so true. And you shouldn't. I don't believe in all of these fad diets where you're like, just eat meat, or just eat animal, or just eat veggies, or
Mhm.
whatever. Like, no, just eat small portions of everything. I think you're good. That's what
Yeah.
I do.
And have your cup of Cheez-Its on the side. That's okay too.
Every now and then. See, that's the difference between adults and kids, though, because I can have like one cup every now and then. They would eat Cheez-Its every single day if I let them, all
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. Well, it's so I learned it from my mom. When we were growing up, my mom we didn't have a lot of money. So I remember sharing this little pack of potato chips with my brother. And it's so funny because I remember my mom saying that this is a sometimes food. You don't get this all the time. It's a treat. And I find
Yes.
myself saying that to my daughter now, that
Hmm.
it's all about it's a treat, it's a sometimes thing, it's a special day or something like that.
Yeah.
And apparently I learned that from my mom. Moderation.
Yeah, that's so funny too, because yesterday it was Friday, and we were having a fun Friday. So we did like
Ooh.
all the things that we normally don't do, and I let them have a little bit of orange soda, which they never get. And we just hung out at Grandpa's house all day and played, and then they got to have a little bit of a show before bed after their bath and everything. It's like fun Friday, but not every day.
Mm-mm. Or every Friday.
Or every Friday, exactly. Nope.
Because then it's not special, right?
Yeah.
So moderation, we teach that.
Moderation, yes.
So another thing that we as moms we teach is spirituality and faith. So how do moms shape our belief system? And for a lot of us it's rooted in religion, spirituality, or simply just having like a strong moral compass. And that can be traced back to our moms.
Mhm.
So a mom who introduces prayer or meditation or reflection can help her kids get a sense of inner peace and purpose. Or a mom who encourages moral and ethical discussions, they help shape values and integrity to make a better world.
Yes, that's what this episode's all about, making a better world, changing the world and shaping the future.
Mm-hmm.
What better way
Yeah.
than teaching kids values and integrity?
Yeah, absolutely. But even moms who don't follow like a structured religion, they can still encourage openness and mindfulness and instill a sense of wonder and connection with the world. So
Yeah.
it's not all about just religion. It's about having a moral compass and just being mindful and open with the world around you and those who inhabit it.
Yeah, I mean, I raise my children in religion, but it's
Mhm.
really more about spirituality and a connection with God than
Mhm.
necessarily like religious rules or man rules or whatever. But at the same time, I teach my kids about karma, and I'm
Yeah.
like, well, that was karma. And they're like, what's karma? And I like explain to them, well, if you do good in life, then you get good in life. If you do bad in life, you get bad in life, so they
Mhm.
understand both. They understand also that God loves them no matter what, and he's always with them, and they have that foundation of that. But then they also know like karma will get you if
Yeah.
you
I love that. What goes around comes around.
seriously. And it's true because they get these perfect examples all the time. We've talked about this in past episodes about natural consequences.
Mhm.
And and I don't necessarily have to say I told you so, but I will say that was karma. Like there's a perfect example for you.
Or have your daughter tell you I told you so because you taught her that. Guilty.
There you go. Now you get to start teaching her all about karma.
Yes.
I think it's a great way. Like kids should understand that it really is true. What goes around comes around. If you're good, it's all about vibrations. I don't know if you know much about vibrations, but I used to study a lot about vibrations.
Mhm.
Every single thing on the earth vibrates at a different frequency, which is why it is like a different shape, a different color, everything. If you
Mhm.
should really look into this. It's really fascinating. And they have even done, you can look on YouTube and they have like water there vibrating in a certain, and then they'll put on a certain frequency. I think
Mhm.
it's 432 hertz, and it will start vibrating in a certain pattern
Oh,
based on the
really?
different frequencies that the music is playing, and
Wow.
it vibrates the water in a different pattern. So if we're all made out of water, okay,
Mhm.
just think about how different vibrations can affect us, right? And
Yeah.
everything is vibrating. And I'm like a huge gut person, all about vibes. I'm always talking
Mhm.
about vibes. And I think that we as mothers, that mother's intuition, that's what we're picking up on is
Yeah.
vibrations. And
Wow.
so, anyways, just to like tie it back to my long explanation. It's like if you're putting out good vibrations in the world, you're going to get good vibrations back. It's the same thing, same
There you
concept.
go. Just
Yeah.
like the song, right?
Yeah.
Oh, so yeah, regardless of your belief system, a mother's guidance often becomes the moral compass that stays with her kids.
Yeah. And it's could tie into the next segment too. Overcoming adversity. Moms teach strength in hardship.
Mm.
So maybe mothers use their moral values, their belief systems, maybe even their religion to teach adversity or to teach what do you do in a hardship, like this. Every mother faces challenges. Okay.
Mhm.
But the way that we navigate it is teaching our children invaluable life lessons on how they should navigate it.
Yeah.
So yeah, like a single mother balancing work and childcare teaches her kids independence and determination. And or a mother who faces illness with courage, their kids learn resilience and gratitude
Mm.
potentially.
Yeah. Or like a mom who advocates for her family despite financial hardships, it shows her child the power of perseverance.
Hmm.
So, a mom's response to hardship isn't just about survival, it's a blueprint for how kids will face their own obstacles. My mom is a cancer survivor, and I remember watching her going through chemotherapy and how hard it was. And it, I don't know if she realizes it, but that actually influenced how I went through my own IVF journey. Because when I was going through IVF, I was taking medicines, injecting medicines that made me physically ill every single day. And I remember laying on the couch, being down and out and feeling really bad for myself, just wallowing in my own self pity that day. And my mind wandered to my mother. And I remember watching her in the hospital having chemotherapy dripped into her veins, and she went every 2 weeks. As soon as she would get some strength back, she went back in for another treatment that made her ill. And I remember finding the parallels between herself and myself, that we are voluntarily taking something that is making us sick, but the big picture is what we're focused on. She was doing it to prolong her life so that she could be a mom to us. And I started thinking, why am I doing this? And it's because my big picture was I wanted to have a baby to share this magnificent world with. And because of my mom and the way that she faced her challenges with so much courage and resilience, it made me say, okay, it made me commit. And I got my miracle. I got my little baby.
That is awesome. Yeah. Maybe if your mother wasn't so strong, maybe you wouldn't have been able to persevere through that.
I agree. My mom, she inspired me. My mom still inspires me.
I love that. That's so awesome.
I don't think I ever mentioned that to anyone. I think that's the first time.
That's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Now everyone knows.
Oh. Well, see, that's exactly how a mother's impact is literally endless. And look, your mother's impact on you has literally created a future generation, and potentially who knows how many future generations that's going to turn into.
Yeah.
Because of that. It's awesome.
It is.
So, yeah, a mother's influence is more than just childhood memories. It is a lifelong blueprint. And so the way that we nurture, it shapes emotional intelligence. The words that we speak shape confidence. The love that we give shapes relationships. And the resilience that we teach shapes success. So every bedtime story, every difficult conversation, every moment of support, even when it's hard, even when we don't feel like doing it, even when we feel overwhelmed and unappreciated. What's cool is it all adds up. All the small things add up to a legacy, and it lasts generations. So the way that you are molding, I guess, this future generation is going to have a ripple effect. You know that movie, Butterfly Effect? I love that movie.
Yeah, it's such a good movie.
Yeah. So every mother, whether she realizes or not, is shaping the future of her child. And so by extension, we're all shaping the future of the world. So to all the mothers listening, even on the days when it feels like you're just getting by, remember you are shaping the future in ways you can't even see yet.
I think that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for listening to us at Pearls of Motherhood. Please feel free to contact us at pearlsofmotherhood.com and email us at ideas@pearlsofmotherhood.com. We're also on Instagram at Pomcast. That's POMCASTS. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode or any ideas for future episodes. After all, we are a podcast for all moms, and we'd love to know what you'd like to explore. New episodes will drop once a week on Friday, so stay tuned for more fun and more pearls. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.
Bye.